What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 456. My name is Steve, one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron
and John.
How's it going, fellas?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. That's good.
If you're listening to this, I was gonna have a weird word for it, but I was trying to think of another word for fireworks. Skyfire? No, that sounds wildly dangerous.
Fire in the sky.
Fire in the sky.
Yeah, you're going to be abducted by aliens. Thank you for listening.
Oh yeah, right. This is the 4th.
Yeah.
Seems like we could have planned something for that.
Clearly, Ronald did.
Yeah. Well, he planned a word and then couldn't think of the word. But yes, are you trying to say like another way of describing what fireworks are?
Fireworks.
How would you describe fireworks to an alien coming to take us?
They doesn't think like it's not missiles. It's actually just like a celebration.
Safe explosions.
Little stars.
Mildly.
Oh.
Yes. Intentional stars exploding.
Okay.
Projectile from the ground.
I like that.
Yeah, good to see you both. An interesting episode only because we're gonna skip required viewing this week. We're gonna put some space between my pick for deep cover. Deep cover.
Steve, when you recommend a light comedy like Deep Cover, sometimes it takes an extra week to process the information.
Yeah. You go for the easy one, and you go for the enjoyable one. I think it's going to bring enjoyment to you when you finally watch it.
Yeah.
But
from what I understand, this is the Oppenheimer of comedy. So I
improv-based action comedy. Yes.
Of light spy
fish
spoofs.
out of water.
Yeah. Oh, Twinkle Blasts. How about that?
I like that.
Perfect.
I like that. Twinkle Blast.
I mean, I would say Deep Cover is kind of like a Twinkle Blast.
Just a Twinkle Blast.
Teaser for next week.
You know what we ought to do is add a little value because we are bumping Deep Cover back this week just because we weren't all able to watch it. Life has been taken over this show lately. And the point of required viewing is that we should all watch it. But do you think maybe for next week we should add value by also talking about the 1992 Lawrence Fishburne film Deep Cover?
Holy shit!
We have on this podcast before.
Have we done it? Have we done it as part of this feature?
I think so.
It might have been a required viewing. Like,
really?
It may have been a required viewing like a long time ago.
It seems like that's why we would have been watching that movie.
Are we coming back to it?
Is this going to be the first reassessment? Well, I mean,
That's
it is
crazy.
It is. I'm surprised we didn't. I thought about it last week when you mentioned this movie. Yeah. That I was like, oh, I know that's the name of another movie. But it does seem like for us to have talked about a 1992 movie on this podcast, it seems like it would have been because of this feature, required viewing. But
yes, and to call back to episode number 385 from August of 2023.
Holy shit! That was a while ago.
From 1992 was our required viewing pick.
Whose pick was it? Did it say?
Don't say it was mine.
It doesn't say.
Oh, okay.
But I'm betting it was either Ronald or myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember talking about it on that episode, and I can't remember who picked it.
Yeah. So this will be the added value. This will be not just not just a required viewing, but it'll be the first time ever that we can say like which movie did better with the name, which movie earned the name. Actually, does this film earn the right to take the name from the 1992 kind of stealth classic? You know, that was a fun one to watch. No, I knew that was awfully familiar, but I think that's great. We've arrived at a point with required viewing where we didn't remember that we had done the movie, and we still don't know for sure who picked it. So that's like proof that this feature has become such a part of the show that
we got to research it. We had Steve, just for a note, Steve had to research our own podcast to find out which one we did, and that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we have that ability now. You know, it's like we have such a catalog that's like really. I don't remember who picked what. You know what I mean? Like.
Well, did you ever think it was weird before? If you ever heard like an artist you admire or some kind of creative person, an author, and they would say, "Oh, I don't really know how many books I've written, or I don't remember the order," or someone, an artist not remembering which album a song was on, or if I don't know if that song ever came out, and then someone's like, "Oh no, that was a B-side." Oh, really? I didn't, And you hear that, and as a young fan, you go, how could they not know? How could they not know these iconic facts about themselves? But then you get older and you put more stuff out into the world and you realize it would be very easy for someone to come up to me and quote something we said on this podcast 2 episodes ago, and I might completely not know what they're talking about.
I passed so much judgment on those artists. I thought I for sure was like, you've done too many drugs.
Right.
I passed judgment on that person like that. Immediately drugs were the thing.
Yeah. Looking at the sequence, I feel like it might have been me because it looks like it was Black Rain prior to that, but that also feels like it could have been me. But the one after it was The Offense, which sounds like a John choice.
That was a me. So that means Deep Cover was you. Black Rain was Ronald.
Does that sound right? Or did we flip-flop or something?
No, I don't think we ever flipped. I think it was always alphabetical.
Black Rain was specifically because I had never seen it, and it was just that director. It was a Ridley Scott movie I'd never seen.
You got didn't you get like a physical one of that or something?
Yeah, yes. And I just had never I'd never seen it. I was like, I've never ever.
What a fun run that we have that many things to talk about on this podcast.
Well, what I love about that too is that's a pretty good. I've thought about before us doing required viewings in a theme, like starting with the next round, let's all pick a black and white movie, or let's all pick a romance or whatever. But those 3 movies fit together in a way that's kind of interesting, going from Black Rain to Deep Cover to The Offense. They're all sort of propaganda.
I love that term, by the way.
I know. What I love is that you can throw it at anything. Because there is such a thing as, it is true. It's worth pointing out that in our culture, we have a lot of movies and TV shows that really glorify cops, and that a lot of stories, the buy-in is we totally understand a cop. Like, you know what I mean? Like you'll watch a Korean thriller, and it's almost comforting when the structure is a familiar sort of thriller structure. Oh, it's a cop. We're following the cop. Yeah. But we know enough about cops to know that, well, following the cop doesn't always mean you're following the best person or the good guy, but also it's interesting to frame stories through that law and order framework where if somebody's doing something wrong, the story is going to be the story of how that ends, of how they get the comeuppance. But you can do another story where you don't ever deal with the existence of the cops. Like I think a Tarantino movie or something, or a Scorsese movie or something, where you can spend your entire time away from seeming like the cops are the ones who are going to save you or the ones that are going to solve the story. I just named 2 people. You could name thousands of movies that fit that model, but I think it's interesting. And even writing, sometimes you think like, when do the cops get involved? Like watching a slasher film, at what point is this a situation where there's 50 cops involved, and versus where it's 3 people sneaking around in the dark? I always think it's kind of interesting. Like, do we need cops in this story?
Yeah. It's funny. 28 years later was Cockagander, which is very close.
That was Cockagander. That's where you take a gander.
That was definitely Cockagander.
Well, Steve, you saw 28 years later, right?
I did, yeah.
I think what you texted us was very positive. Maybe talk a little bit about what your experience with that movie was, because I think I loved it, and Ronald, I felt like you were pretty positive on it too.
Yeah. I'll never forget what Steve texted us. Changed life. Favorite movie of all time.
That's what it was. I think it might be a masterpiece. No, that would be from Ronald's book. No, I feel like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'd heard so much positivity around it, even though there was some bit of like divisiveness, like with the ending and, things like I had seen on social media, not trying to spoil anything for myself. And even, you guys talking about it. But, my expectations were high, and I feel like they were definitely met, and in some ways exceeded. Some things I didn't expect really kind of knocked me out a little bit. Like I felt like the warmth and the humanity in the movie was unexpected, I guess, but so at least from me, very well received. Like it really emotionally affected me. A number of scenes in the movie, specifically relating to Spike and his mother. And even in the relationship with his father, but I don't know. I think overall, it was a little different than I expected it. Maybe some of those expectations were tamped down a little bit based on some feedback I'd read, or heard. But overall, I thought like this was a great movie. Like I felt like this is a very worthy entry into this franchise. and kind of creates a real opportunity, and I hope they get to realize it. To kind of make that third film, to have Boyle be able to make, and Alex Garland be able to make the third film in this planned trilogy. I thought the performances were great. Again, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the I don't even know the actor's name who played Spike. I think it's like one of his first feature films.
Yeah.
He was incredible. Like he was so good. I saw it with Lauren, and I kind of looked over and I was like, this kid's really good. And Jodie Comer I thought was just great. I mean, honestly, like Jodie Comer and like Ralph Fiennes really just kind of that whole sequence when he gets there to the doctor, all of that just worked incredibly well. Like there's some shift that happens in the movie at that point, and like it's kind of doing that thing where I guess I don't want to bring up The Walking Dead because it kind of soured on that in its life cycle, but where so much time or just the experience has gone by that these zombies or these infected are a part of life, and the real interesting stuff is the relationships between like the non-infected, and you definitely get teased with that at the end of the movie, and you can kind of see who these pockets of people are that are going to have a conflict, and what that looks like and what's that going to become if these movies make it to 3 films. But it kind of pivoted very nicely to me. Like the finesse was there, that you got the zombie stuff or the infected stuff, you got more lore around that in terms of their survival, that they are still people in ways that they procreate, and like these things, there's all these like little throwaway lines that just make so much logical sense and make you wonder more about this world that they've created with this franchise. But yeah, walking out of it, I was really, really happy and really impressed. And the more it sits with me, I think I like loved it even more than, that when I even texted you guys, because those emotional scenes, like, I was crying, a little bit, man. Like at that part, the part. And, but it just felt really right. It felt so humane, and it felt so like warm, and like for the movies to really not have that for the most part. I mean, there's sequences especially 28 weeks later and even in 28 days later, but nothing on that level, and, for Jodie Comer's performance, I felt like, the struggle and the pain and the confusion, to have moments of clarity and to get those little bursts of connection to her son, I just thought were so sweet. And, yeah, again, the mother of it all, like it just really kind of connects with it. It makes it so you can connect with it. I don't know. It just really got me. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next from this franchise. I hope I get to see, more of Ralph Fiennes' character. I was really intrigued by that man and that character.
Yeah.
And, maybe in some degrees a character that met some expectations from people on the island, but in reality was probably more sane and more, human than
right.
Some people who may consider themselves to be living the most normal lives that they could. But
yeah, he was zombie Willy Wonka to me. He zombie Willy Wonka. He felt like here's a field made of bones. Made of bones. Yeah. It just felt very like whimsical, but it didn't. Nothing about it felt goofy. Like it's crazy. Like there's like a humor that he had, and it's like it's like your relationship with life and death creates this humor that you really don't have until this level of craziness starts to happen to you.
Yeah,
it's like I've seen so much, I've been through so much that I could only joke about this thing unless you've experienced it. It's
you know what the energy is a little bit like? It's a little bit like the Mad Max series.
Yeah.
Where you can wander into a scenario and George Miller's going to shoot it in a way that might be kind of crazy, or it might be kind of frenetic, or it might be kind of nuts. I mean, it's not the same style, but there's a similar feeling of like oh, this is like going to have some comic elements to it, but it's going to feel like this is comic because it's extreme or it's so far removed from our world, but it's still recognizably our world. And I like that, especially the way the movie plays around with that idea that elsewhere in the world, maybe our world is just chugging along as we know it. I think that was an interesting wrinkle that I did not know was there. And I guess it kind of contradicts the end of this second movie, which I did not see, but I heard some people saying that this movie kind of contradicts the way that movie ends. But since I don't know that, I didn't have that baggage. I just thought it was really cool how much, 28 years is plenty of time for the world to become this kind of, like you were saying, Ronald, almost, and I said this before when we talked about it too, I think almost like a fable-y kind of feeling to the way that the world is put together, but you can simplify and say, oh, well, here's a group of people living here, and all they know is each other, and everything outside of that, they have this one way to access the mainland, and it's like on and on and on. It has a kind of adventure structure or a, like I mentioned, the Green Knight, this idea of just taking an adventure into a land that you kind of know and that's going to be somewhat familiar, but you really don't know what you're going to find. And so this new guy, Ray Fiennes' character, he could be a villain, he could be a really scary person, or he could be a misunderstood, more human person who's just trying to do something. Like he's been kind of cracked by this experience, but what he's trying to do is not psychotic in the sense that it might look. And even the way he looks like he's covered in blood, and then you find out more, like even that is a little bit of a reveal. Like when you first see him, that's what you think, oh, this guy's covered in blood, and then you find out why and what. And I think that those details make it both grounded and kind of whimsical or farcical or something that I think maybe that's a Danny Boyle thing, maybe that's an Alex Garland thing.
I think it might be definitely Boyle, especially.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really dug it, and the whole, and also just we can move on. But I wanted to mention the whole concept around the Latin phrase "memento mori," like how he explained that. That really got me. Like, like that is a pretty heavy concept, and that concept of, the death, like just remembering death. You remember you must die or whatever it completely translates to, but even in this world dominated by virus and things like that, like you will still die. And what does that mean? And what will it be like? And talking about like the best versions of that, you know what I mean? Like that was I thought that was very moving.
Yeah, man. I definitely cried. Definitely cried too.
Yeah. So that was 28 years later. I thought it was a really, really great film.
Well, I just realized since we did not, I usually take a background image from the required viewing.
Yeah.
I thought maybe, but this was like a little bit of a blast from the past. So I'm just going to throw this up there. This is a nice reminder. There we go. Look at that, fellas.
Hey, look at there.
Remember that?
Looky there.
Our old folks, back in the old days, we used to change this image every week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had like background. Yeah,
we would put a different image in there,
Yeah.
This is a big M. If you can't tell, folks.
Pretty cool.
And also, wasn't Schmovie underneath it, but with the S and the CH in a parenthesis? I always thought that was a fun, again, it's like questioning that idea of what we even mean by the name of this show.
Right.
Like, we all know what a movie is when you modify it with sh at the beginning. Yeah. I guess that's a movie that you should shut up during.
Yeah.
Shh. Movie.
Right. There we go.
But yeah, I guess I'm glad we're getting part 2 of this chunk of the story at the very least. I guess we don't know for sure. You're right. We don't know for sure if they'll get to make the third one. But it seems like the second one's, since it's already in the can, and this first one's performed pretty well. It seems to me like that guarantees that these directors, or at least Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, know how to maybe keep a budget low and make a movie. So maybe they can, get that third one out. But I think that's interesting that they kind of conceived this as a trilogy.
Yeah.
And I like the ending of this movie. I like that this ends in such a way that makes you excited for the next one. I know that some people feel like it's an incomplete story, but I think I said this last time too, Steve, that like maybe now you'll see what I mean. It really ends and then has a little tease of what the next chunk is. It doesn't feel like a movie that's not complete. I think when he delivers what he delivers to his home village at the end, and he doesn't go back himself, that is an ending to this story in my mind. That
100%.
That is an end. So the fact that we get a cool epilogue is just, to me, very playful and fun. And the fact that epilogue is kind of heightened and wild, I really can't wait to see what they do with that, particularly that actor in that central role.
Yeah, I was looking for him the whole movie, and I was like, I knew he was in it, but I was like, oh shit, there he is. There's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
He should have said a name. A name that I love the way he says it. Cool, man. I'm glad you liked it. That makes me happy, because I like, sometimes I'm like, this movie is making me like I'm a river right now. Like I wonder if I was wondering how everybody else.
I was feeling it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, you kind of mirrored what we were talking about a little bit last time, without trying to spoil it too much for you. But like, how would you market this movie if you really were trying to talk to people about what it really is? And I think it is a little bit hard to know how you would market if you were going for the sort of dramatic mother-son relationship as the main hook of this movie. So in some ways, it's very fun and stealthy that the real heart of the film is not what you necessarily expect, but the fact that it delivers on both fronts, I think, is what makes it feel like such a I think I could easily rewatch this movie, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know that I always feel that way, even with a movie that I think is really good. I don't always have this urge to see it again, or to make sure that, like, I think Nikki and Henry would like this. I want to make sure they see it. You know, that's something that this one I started thinking like halfway in. I was just like, I know I'm going to be talking about this one. You know, thinking about this one for a while.
Definitely. Well,
so Ronald, you saw a movie twice.
I was saying keep it going with things we liked. What do you got there, Ronald?
F1, son. You know, Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, cars.
I thought it was about the person that invented the function keys on the standardized keyboard.
Because there've been so many of those movies lately.
I know, I was about to say.
So many of them. All right, so I saw F1 in two formats. I saw it in 4DX and I saw it in ScreenX. And those were very different experiences. I was on a roller coaster with FDX, 4DX, and that was just so there's D-Box that Cinemark offers, and then it's 4DX, which is essentially like a fucking roller coaster. Yeah. It is very akin to a roller coaster. It has steam coming out, water comes out.
Wow.
You know, it is violent. I tell you, so much so that people that were late were trying to jump on the chairs as they were moving.
Get out of here.
Somebody got thrown off.
Wow.
Like a horse ride, just like a mechanical
That would have been worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah, like a mechanical. Yes, it was, honestly. Like, this lady got thrown off the chair like a mechanical bull. It was really interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah. So this is a Joseph Kosinski directed movie. For those who don't know, he did Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, right?
We all know him as the inventor of sci-fi, right? Isn't he the guy
inventor of sci-fi?
Yes. I was gonna say, you can't talk about Mr. Joseph Kosinski without really cementing his place in history as the creator of sci-fi.
Yeah.
By which we mean Oblivion, where Rana was first introduced to the concept.
Folks, I was about to say, we're
going back into the history books on this episode. This is even further. This is way yonder.
Yeah. Crazy callback.
Yes, but he did Top Gun Maverick. He did Oblivion. He did the one Tron sequel.
Right.
Yeah.
Tron. And then he had that Netflix movie too with Chris something.
Yeah.
Chris what's Chris is that? Hemsworth.
Spiderhead?
Spiderhead, that's right. It's based off that novel.
I knew it was kind of a clunky name like that. No, but so let's think about what that means. It's like action elements, fantasy elements sometimes, but like a sleekness maybe, kind of an elegance to the sort of visuals, the way that it's shot. Yes. I mean, it's not unusual to think a guy like that would do a racing film, because there's so much like love of surfaces and like movement and everything. So how did it hold up? I mean, to me, this just feels like a movie that the photography, even from the trailer, I don't normally do the whole car movie thing, like it's not something that normally gets me going, but this looked really good to me because I was like, oh, I bet this is going to be filmed in a way that's exciting. And also, I think there's room every now and then for one of these, oh, he's the old crusty pro and there's a rookie, like that story is always old, but it also kind of never gets old. And this looked like a kind of fun version of it. So how did all that stuff hold up? Mix.
I mean, there's a very simple explanation for it. Stranger Things taught a lot of people who never touched Dungeons and Dragons what Dungeons and Dragons was and the basic rules of it. Some good basketball and football movies kind of do the same thing, and even boxing movies kind of tell you the point system and stuff like that. And I don't think I've seen anything in a really long time that helped me understand how this sport worked more than this movie. It's nothing like it. It is the longest F1 commercial I've ever seen, but it is also like a credit. It has a lot more heavy lifting than, say, Top Gun Maverick, because we're dealing with, this cultural phenomenon that existed quite a long time ago. And it just has to be good, but that movie happened to be exceptional. This has the heavy lifting of bringing something that hasn't really existed since like the 80s, right? Like what was the last major race car movie?
Well, I mean, Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder. I was going to say.
And that's NASCAR.
What was the one that Hemsworth was in that Ron Howard directed?
Oh, yeah. Rush.
Rush.
Right. Oh, right. Rush. But I guess
which I never saw, but I heard that was really good.
Right.
I think you guys both liked that one.
Modern-wise, Days of Thunder is probably the closest that I can think of in terms of the way that it's presented. And it does an incredible job, because that's not what even makes this movie good. Because that's one of the things, obviously. It's a Ted Lasso story. It's a country dude that comes to a London team who has a very specific way of doing it. Because it's not just about the fact that he's a failure, or it's the fact that he does things very differently than they do things. It's like a ideological divide between the way he does things. They're by the numbers. They're like, oh, statistics tell me this. And he comes in, when you see what he chooses as his way to have his one up on these teams, it is nuts. Because it's not anything that I would have thought would be acceptable. But apparently there are racers that have these tactics. He's like, they play it by the book, and he finds every gray area ever. But what you realize is, like, if you think about a good sports team, they even find a gray area in something. Like the penalty might not, you can play with what's a penalty really?
Yeah.
If you're sacrificing, shaking up the team in the middle of a run or something like that. And he has a lot of that. He has a lot of like weird tactics, and they get downright weird and cheaterish. And it develops this kind of relationship where you're like, I kind of want him to do it again. He's done it already. What's one more time to make this a little easier for them to rank in this race?
Right.
And Brad is just a really fun presence, and Damson is just the opposite of this guy. This guy is off the grid. Damson is a young person that understands where every camera is at any time. And there's something really impressive about those two energies kind of meeting each other, because they really do teach each other something. Like, it's like, Damson kind of looks at his career and kind of sees who Brad Pitt was before his career kind of went awry. Right. And the other happens, and they kind of analyze each other's moves. They insult the shit out of each other constantly, which is really fun. They just have these real big energies, and it's very obvious that Damson Idris's character is a big like changing of the guard of how he may be used to sports being played. He is the internet. He is the internet generation. He wants to be in every post. He's posting constantly as a media person. He has 10 sponsorships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that stuff is really cool to see. And because it's filmed on location, it feels so authentic. Apparently what they would do is like they'd have a major event and they get essentially they're like, you can't have a whole fucking set. We'll let you shoot on the track for 10 minutes. That's essentially how they got the in-between stuff. And they did this for damn near 2 years.
Wow.
Of collecting things all over the world. So like they'd get like Brad Pitt would say like, we get in a car, ride around halfway around the track. That was the shot. And then everything else was like, because it was so authentic in that way.
Yeah, you can't fake. Oh, or you could fake it, but like the stuff that honestly hurts movies like this nowadays is how often they use digital crowd fill-ins, or how often they don't have that. They don't have a real thing. You know what? It's a crazy comparison, but it reminds me of like Richard Linklater or something. The way that he'll have a way of shooting a movie that takes a long time, but like there's planning involved. And we're going to shoot this over 6 years so that we can get all this stuff. But running around grabbing footage at actual events, that's actually really clever.
Yeah, man. So like they would essentially give them in between a commercial break or something, shoot what you can, and they would grab what they could.
That's great.
If you have some time, Armchair Expert, the podcast with Dax Shepard, he interviewed Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt is going in about how much he loved shooting it. It has some like real cool behind the scenes stories. It's just I've never heard Brad Pitt talk for longer than 5 minutes at a time. So this is a really cool. He's everything I expected. He's not like I thought that he would be, especially with this press run. He's been a little more open about praising other actors in the environment, and he feels like he's so appreciative to be there. Like in a different way than Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is like, and Brad Pitt's like, Brad Pitt's kind of like, yeah, I'm happy to be alive, happy to be here.
He's definitely more of like a dude, like he's just a person.
Well, I mean, I think that we know that about Tom Cruise, right? That he's weird. I mean, he's weird. Yeah. He's a strange customer. Brad Pitt is much more. I mean, again, we know some odd things about him, but just as far as his general image, he's much more of a dude in that sense.
Yeah.
In the Lebowski sense, as well as in the just sort of, oh, he's a bro kind of thing. He has that vibe. So no, I think that's interesting that because this week there was or last couple of weeks there was a little bit of cross press between the two of them, and it makes you realize like, those two guys, you think of them as like, oh yeah, they could just slide right into working together, but then you stop and go, oh, but they do kind of different. They do have a different sort of thing that they bring. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to think that what Brad Pitt brings, like you could tell me that F1, if Tom Cruise starred in that whole premise of what you're talking about, the dynamic, it would be different because a Tom Cruise character isn't going to be the laconic sort of Ted Lasso, whatever. He's going to be a different thing. He's going to be the amped up sort of adrenalized guy. It's just interesting. I hadn't really thought about the differences between the two guys.
What do you want? And another thing is like Damson insults him a lot in this movie. I wonder if Tom could even take some of the stuff he was taking, because there's like there's a layered thing to the dialogue. It's like, you once were this person, you're not this person anymore, and I'm like, this isn't a lot about track. This is like a weird commentary on who Brad Pitt is as a person too, like the perception of who he is as an actor, and it really has this. That's
interesting to me.
This is not a new.
The way that actors are part of the casting, I love that when it's like you're not. You know what I mean? You in order for this character to work, we bring our baggage, our Brad Pitt baggage to the movie, and then 100%. Anything they say that's like that connects with what we think of this actor. And if it's done 200%. Right, that makes the character better. If it's done poorly, that's when you say someone was miscast.
Yeah. I gotta shout out a couple people. Javier Bardem is doing something so special in this, man. He is the man who is invested in the company that he's trying to get Brad Pitt to be on the team that he bought. He used to race with Brad Pitt, and he's like they're same age essentially, but Brad is still doing like shitty demolition derbies, that is stuff like that, and he's a 3 million figure person who owns his team. So it's like cool to see the dynamic. Javier has been on this like comedy run that I've been really liking, where his performances are so funny and irreverent. And Carrie Condon
I love her.
Man, she's like the engineer for the company. She's incredible. And I know that a lot of people are afraid that because she might be romantically connected to somebody in the movie, that it would take away from who she was as a character. Mm-hmm. Man, they were showing her do all this cool stuff with wind and resistance to the car. This woman was more than qualified for a job, in the movie. So it wasn't like she was just there because she was a woman. So don't feel like you're going to be slighted in that way when you see this engineer and she happens to be
like
dating
like the typical love interest kind of thing.
It's none of that. It's in fact there's a lot of pushback, which I think is really cool. And again, Damson is out of this world, man. It's those Brad and Damson scenes are like electric to me. Like they're almost about to kill each other so much that it feels so like I like this better. I didn't want to say this, but just because it's the last movie he directed. I like this better than Maverick. And I love Maverick. Maverick is like one of my favorite movies in the past 10 years for sure. This feels a little more my speed. This is something that I can relate to. Like this feels like very much like fish out of water sort of deal. Like you've never been here before. You can't make it, you bum. It's like that kind of stuff. I love it, man. I love it. Man. It's my kind of movie. So, yeah.
Can't wait. I cannot wait to see this. And
I think it's shocking that not only have you not seen this film, Steve, but Ronald took one of your viewings. He actually.
Yeah.
The good problem that I have with
there's one less viewing out there for you to have because Ronald's seen it twice.
Yeah. The good problem that I have with this film is that the trailers were so good that my wife actually wants to see it with me.
So you got to time it.
So I'm like, okay, that's cool. This is exciting for me. Obviously, she knows Brad's my number one. She loved Maverick. I explained to her a lot of the same people involved with this production. And we saw the trailer. Actually, when we saw the trailer attached to when we went and saw Jurassic World Rebirth in the theater, especially the trailer was just awesome. And she was like, "Wow, that looks good. I want to see that with you." So yeah, I got to figure that out.
I did a little bit of actual word on the street sort of research. I saw a woman, one of my neighbors, coming home with she had 2 big things of popcorn, like unfinished popcorn. And I said, "What'd you go see?" She had, because I could tell it was from Cinemark, and she said F1. And I said, "How was it?" And she said, "Great." And then I said, I thought the filming of the races looked cool. And she said, "Oh, it was great. But Brad Pitt was great."
Yeah. He is, man. It's weird. He's like going for something in this, man. He's like, he's so sad in this movie.
He's also Brad Pitt. And
he's also Brad Pitt. It reminds me of I think I told you guys this, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when after that movie was over, I heard 2 ladies that were leaving, older ladies leaving, and one of them said that they would watch Brad Pitt pick his nose for 3 hours. I believe that's what she said. I remember you
telling me that.
I believe that. I believe they would do that. Like, I mean, he got it, man. Whatever it is, and it feels like Damson also has it. Like it's like really cool to see.
Yeah.
This guy, and then like maybe a future Brad Pitt. It's like these people are like right beside each other. He's gonna be up there with like Denzel and Tom Cruise, and it's just he has that energy. He's ready. He's like, make me T'Challa, and I will show you motherfuckers who I can be.
There you go.
The further we get from that choice not to recast Black Panther, the
feels
more,
weird, right?
The more I think they should have. I think at the time we felt that way, but we're afraid to say so.
I was
not
hurt.
afraid because it was just like we understood what they were dealing with. It is hard to, but it's like in retrospect, I think the value of setting up that character and keeping him around might have been stronger than the state of whatever that is now. But I mean, of course, we haven't seen a lot of that stuff in a while, so maybe it'll work. But I was thinking about that. I was actually thinking about that in relation to another thing that's been on. We talked last time about Ironheart. They have now burned off the last 3 episodes of that, so now it's all 6 are available to watch, and the story's done. And I realized that I saw a lot of criticism of the first 3 episodes after we talked about them, Ronald. Did you finish out the show yet? Did you watch the...
I did not, man. Okay. I want to so bad.
Well, maybe we can hold off because I think there's some interesting things to talk about in a sort of spoilery sort of way. But I will say that this show, in my opinion, very successfully closed the loop of what I think a 6-episode season should feel like.
Okay.
And that it ended with a definite season 2. This feels like season 2 is being set up, like whether they plan to do it or not. It doesn't feel like a story. It doesn't feel like an incomplete story, but it does feel like now the story we would pick up with now would kind of be a status quo that this first season was creating. But the character that everyone's been kind of rumoring might pop up in the MCU shows has finally arrived, and the actor they have playing that character is good and fun to watch. And it was just a little bit of that old Marvel magic of you finally seeing someone who is cast that sounded interesting, and you go, oh, they're really doing something here. They're having some fun here. Again, not revolutionary stuff, but I think my knee-jerk assessment is I kind of want to do, even if it's just for my own enjoyment, I want to do a tier list of the MCU Disney Plus shows. I need to watch a couple of them that I did not watch before I can decide. But I think this is one of the better MCU Disney Plus shows. Like, it's in the top third for me, which is just, like, maybe they're not all that great, so it's not that hard to be one of the better ones, but it's one that actually built as it went along. And in 6 episodes, it felt like there was something. Like, Ronald, you noticed probably in the first 3 episodes would end, and it felt like an episode. Like, it would go to credits, and there would be a needle drop, a cool song, a moment that feels like the end of a show. If this had been a weekly show, I think it could have sustained the kind of curiosity that you need.
I think so, too.
To have week to week. I don't know what the logic of having it come out in this way is. The only thing, like I said to you guys, is if you treat it as a binge model show, that getting 2 weeks of hype out of it rather than 1 is better. But I have not seen I've seen some good word of mouth for this, but I have also seen a lot of people really trashing this show. And it's strange to me that for me, it was such a satisfying thing. And for some people it was not. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if they even get to pick up on this stuff. That's the hard thing with these shows, Star Wars and MCU, that they might be hinting at something you find really interesting, but then they might announce the next week they have no plans to make a season 2 or whatever. But what I brought this up in relation to was I had started off the show feeling like Riri was not that different from Shuri. Like, in Wakanda Forever, you have both of them are similar, sort of like geniuses in the lab and super funded and doing all this cool stuff. I think that what this show did was really make the difference between the characters really clear. And I know some people were saying it takes Riri down a peg from where she was in Wakanda Forever, but I think this show actually gives her own milieu to be in. And she's not this person who's like working in a lab where she has access to all the gear and tech. It's much more like a homespun effort to do what she's doing. If we can believe that Peter Parker built those web shooters, then we can believe that Riri Williams made a suit in a garage, So, but no, I can't wait to see what they do if they get to do more with the sort of the villain that gets revealed in this. It was just a fun thing. So, yeah,
cool.
That's my final take. I can't wait to hear what you think, Ronald, because I know you enjoyed the first 3 episodes too.
I did. I can't wait. Can't wait.
Anything else you guys saw I want to mention?
I watched Deep Cover.
Oh, you watched
Steve's pick for required viewing.
Oh, I was gonna say 39 great years. Thanks, Chuck.
Oh, you saw it finally.
I did. And boohoo.
Yeah.
It's a somber ass movie. It's a somber ass story. It's a somber ass thing. But there's something.
Is this what is this? Good Luck, Chuck?
Yeah, Good Luck,
Life
Chuck.
of Chuck.
Okay. Or Life of Chuck.
Life of Chuck.
Sorry. Good Luck, Chuck.
Good Luck, Chuck.
Yeah,
What is
Good
that?
Luck, Chuck.
Is that the one with
that's Dane Cook or
Dane Cook? Boy, there's a person whose filmography we frequently discuss in detail.
He would break up with the girls and then they get married, or he'd have sex with them and then they'd get married.
Like the next person they met, the next person they met would be the one, right?
Yeah. Commonly confused.
Commonly confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the story, the short story. I've listened to it twice. It was really emotional. Um, this was a good one. I'm happy with it. It feels like a good translation. Um, it was very emotional, man. It's a lot to process. Like
It's a heavy movie.
yeah, seeing the end of the world in this way, and then that wasn't even the story. Like it's just like, oh, the narration was great. Um, and well acted, man. I don't know. I'm just thinking about the emotions of it, but it was just a very good movie. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. But I'll probably never see that movie again. Probably not, man. It was too much. Tom Hiddleston was like doing amazing stuff in this movie, and the person that played him as a kid.
So it's some great kid, like the not just the kid for him, but like when they went from like the 12-year-old kid to like the 16-year-old kid.
Yes,
great casting.
Yeah,
I thought
very, very good.
No, it's interesting. I feel like there's a conversation I'm waiting to have about this one with you guys until Steve has seen it, based on recent events in my life, and the way this movie has me feeling. I feel like there's a whole discussion that I might hold until we can kind of get into it and not be coy. But I definitely, have been on a little journey with this one, because some of the things that this movie made me think about specifically have to do with,
everything going on.
Yes, things that like very, very specifically. So I might wait until we can have a more heartfelt discussion, and maybe that'll be that part in my coping journey too, where it's easier for me to talk about some of that stuff. No, yeah, I think you're right, Ronald. This is one of those where you might question, like, I can't think of the last time I saw a movie that I felt this way about, where I was like, oh, I don't really want to I don't want to be racked with these feelings that often, but I can appreciate that a movie is really special if it manages to get me to think about these things. And I do think that what Life of Chuck does is it ties together a lot of little subtopics, like philosophical, like pop philosophy about life maybe, but it's like it ties together a lot of ideas. Do you know what I mean? Like the concept that gets explained about longevity of the universe versus longevity of human, like that's something that we've heard about, how what a tiny blip humanity has been around in the history of the universe. But I think this movie did a good job of like explaining that and then illustrating that and then kind of reminding you of it in a way that makes you feel not insignificant, but special. That's the thing I hate, is when people act like, if you don't believe in like a specific higher power or specific story of what it means, to be human, that you are making life less significant.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I think it's actually more special and significant to say that we don't know why or how we exist, or why we have the ability to even think about why we exist, Like I love the mystery of that. I think when you try to answer the mystery of that is when you trip up, in my opinion. And this movie manages to think about all that stuff without ever really offering answers, I don't think, for the mystery of it. So yeah, Steve, you need to see it. It's probably coming home before you can check it out, right? That's the way to see it now.
Has to, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know if they announced the date for it or not yet, but
well, we'll get to it. Someone should take all the billboards, all the Life of Chuck billboards, and paste Dan Cook's face on.
They missed an opportunity there. They should have had the crossover.
Yeah.
Where was Banksy with that one? Come on, Banksy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else that I saw that
I know one thing.
I do actually. I lied.
I was going to say, I know one thing you saw, something short. The Running Man trailer was an arrow right at your heart, right?
Yeah, that was great. Glenn Powell, let's go.
Wow.
I was going to say we saw Elio.
Oh, okay.
Took the kids and Aaron. Okay. We all went and saw that, and it was great. Honestly,
was it? Oh, really?
Not to run on here, but it's really sad that all of the headlines are about worst opening for Pixar, and now there's like additional stuff coming out this week about the cuts of the film and the creatives involved with it and all the trouble it went through with its iterations. But the movie that we saw in the theater, I thought was really great. And
okay, Steve, I got to ask a question. is it hard to sell? Because I don't think the trailers really sell. I don't know. To me, I never felt like the trailer. Like I think of a Pixar as a movie that the trailer sells me on some idea. I couldn't really get an idea from. It looked like a cool story, but it didn't look like a Pixar sort of movie with a big hook or something. And I'm wondering, like, what is it? Just a well done story, or is there some hook that's lying in the wings that's kind of being kept out of the marketing? Do you get what I'm asking? Or
I think there is a hook. Okay. I think it's not as like novel or kind of creative, or maybe like has the wow factor of some of the higher level things that Pixar has done.
Okay.
But I don't think that all of them are. I would say this movie feels more like a Coco. Okay. Honestly, I was going to say like Coco, Turning Red. Like it's like there's a hook, there's a story. It's not as like kind of the word is, I don't want to say the word's creative, but
it's not as clean of a concept or as clear of a concept. It's like, maybe
the idea is, I would say, leaving the movie, my idea that the hook of this film is, and this is what ties into the outer space alien stuff of it all, is like, are we alone? Mm-hmm. You can flip that however you want. We are not alone. Mm-hmm. And all the cultural tags, we know what that means, and but when you stay on the ground and think about us as people, and people feeling alone and realizing that they're actually not alone, like that's the hook of the movie, is that, there's relationships happening in interpersonal, like with this kid and his aunt, and things that have happened to them in their families and in their careers and in their young lives, that, there's a correlation between the story that he wants to experience, which is take me away someplace else. I'm alone. I know there's something out there. And when he gets to experience that, it's like through that, he learns that he actually wasn't alone, and the people that he felt alienated from need him as much as, he needs them. It's really good. Honestly, like, it's very moving.
You answered my question in a great way, in that to me does sound like a Pixar kind of hook, but you're right about those movies, like Turning Red's a great example.
Yes.
Like, you watch that movie and you totally get what the concept of it is and why it's done the way. But if you put it into like a couple sentences, it's like one or two too many things laid on top of each other to feel like the simplicity of Inside Out or Toy Story or something like that.
That's the like, higher popularity ones I was trying to describe before. This feels more.
No, that's a great comparison, though, because I think those Pixar movies are ones that when you watch them, you do find, just because this doesn't have a simple, like, grabby concept, it doesn't mean they're not putting that kind of thought into it. Because I can, even you just saying that, I can picture the difference between being like, okay, being alone in the universe and being alone in your room.
Yes.
They're not different, and yet they are connected. I mean, they are and they aren't different. I think that's an interesting idea. And when you even use the word alienated, think like, okay, that's a word we use that doesn't have anything to do with aliens.
Exactly.
But if you actually think of what that word means, I don't know. I can already see where this is playing around, because from the trailer it just looked like kind of a cool adventure, like a cool kid's adventure, and I didn't really know what would draw me to it outside of just knowing it was probably really well done. That was just my only thought was, Pixar does good stuff. I'm sure I'll see it.
And that's it, really. I mean, like it's both of those things. Honestly, like it is an adventure, just like Coco is an adventure. Like, he goes on an adventure to learn something about his life, his family, and what connects him deeper to it. And honestly, that's what this is too. It's like, and it's funny. It's super creative. The only thing I feel like so weird about, and I feel this way about a lot of these animated films, depending on what the topic is like the galaxy stuff and like the space stuff and the alien stuff. Like, I always feel uneasy about how well that connects with audiences still. Like, it doesn't seem like to me like it does anymore. In a lot of movies that have come out, animated films that like are space driven or whatever, or galaxies, or I don't know, aliens. Again, not to repeat myself, but that's a concern I have about this film, and maybe a part of why maybe it didn't connect. But there's no problem with this movie. This movie is very good.
Yeah,
it looks great. It's got a great. The score is so good. And it is just. My kids loved it. Aaron, but all of us really, really enjoyed this movie. So, if go see it while it's in theaters. I mean, like these originals, like Pixar has their own problems in terms of how they're making them and the production budgets and all these things that again we've talked about before that feel like it kind of sets some of these movies up to fail before they even have a chance. But this is really struggling. And the drops have been pretty good internationally and domestic, but it's got a long way to go. And I feel like there's no real upside to it. Maybe once it comes on Disney Plus or whatever, but we all really enjoyed it, and it was way better than the attention it's getting. So,
well, we don't want Pixar to learn that sequels are the only things that make a bunch of money, but it seems like that's all anybody's learning right now, even though that doesn't even always pan out.
I know, sadly.
So, I know it's crazy. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah, I think you both would really enjoy it.
Cool.
Well, I know I loved the special watermelon flavored icy that was like a promotional thing with Elio.
Oh, perfect. I mean, that's the gateway right there, John.
Yeah, it was. It did make me think. It did make me think maybe I need to see this movie while I was enjoying the flavor. I was like, you know what? Maybe because I mean, I'll be honest. I read you even shared a link about how much it cost and what it was tracking for, and it was part of our "What Are They Doing" conversation about like spending too much. It has nothing to do with the movies that come up in this way are things like this, which you really liked, or Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which I really loved. The problem is not the movie. The problem is that they spent twice what they probably should have on.
Yeah, Furiosa.
Yeah, Furiosa. Great example
too. I totally agree. Like it's just it's a non-unique to this film, but it's a problem in the industry. And I don't know, man. Like this movie was really good, and it's just kind of getting shit on. I mean, like critical responses and audience, like that stuff is all pretty high. Yeah. It's just people aren't seeing the movie. That's all.
Well, I mean, it's like the image. Like it reminds me of the way Sinners had all those stories written about how it's doing all these, all this amazing box office, but it's not tracking to be the biggest thing in the world, like this and this and this, or it's falling short of this expectation. It's weird when that's the story that gets printed, rather than. Like what you just said, let's talk about the movie itself. I mean, again, I know we're part of it in a way, but I think there is too much of a, we've talked about it recently enough on the show, just too much of an interest in how are things doing, when really, I feel like when I was growing up, it was accepted that some great movies had been flops.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
That doesn't mean they weren't great, and you don't really say, now I feel like we have a little bit too much of maybe because we're very aware of if this succeeds, then it will allow this to get made, or the types of movies that they want to make. But I think it's just part of that. I don't know. Everybody who's making this stuff is kind of scared because they don't know what connects. And like you said, space, Star Wars, whatever, like these are not things that guarantee people's fascination the way that it used to. And so, you used to be able to make a dazzling adventure movie and just trust that would be enough to bring people in. And now people are like, maybe it's because we've seen it all, like, or with CGI, people think they've seen it all. I don't know. I think people are less, it's harder to impress people, even if your movie looks really cool.
The Town has a really good interview. Steve, have you seen it with Blumhouse? The Blumhouse conversation. It was
about Megan too. About
everything.
Oh, okay.
It's about it's one of the things, but it's like about the series.
It's the reason he's on the episode. Yeah, but he goes on a bunch of other topical things.
I just saw where he said something about that Megan 2.0 was like they tried a genre swap, and that the audience for that franchise wasn't quite ready. I know a few people that have seen that movie that really enjoyed it, but the people I know that saw it are people that really are on board for a wacky, zany type thing. So I can see why that would be a risk, to say we're going to.
It's a weird combination of like. What did he say? He said like they did a genre swap. They moved it to the summer, the bigger budget. But the cinema score is higher than Megan.
Yeah.
So like, to your point, John, like people that are in on it and wanted to see it, that went to see it, like they enjoy it. It's actually, the fans, the audience score like it. And, it's just like other things just didn't. Yeah. But that's it's an interesting episode. Yeah. That episode of The Town. I love that kind of.
Did you see it, Ronald? Man. Did you end up going to the screening last week for Megan?
No, I didn't see it yet. I want to, but it's cool because it starts with that. But there've been like 4 or 5 movies that just haven't done well for them.
Yeah,
the way that they expected, and it's wild. Because Megan's kind of a weird deal. Because like this is a totally different movie than what people saw in the first ones. So I kind of expected it not to do as well, but not
Agreed.
flop, you know?
Yeah.
But the other ones were like, I was pretty sure that some of those movies were going to work. Like, I was like, okay, so Exorcist Believer isn't going to do box, crazy.
Oh, right. That
numbers,
was a real failure.
but
yeah.
it flopped. There was like, God damn! Like, and he talks about all that stuff. He's like, there's some accountability on some level, and then some of it is like, I don't know what the fuck's happening right now. But I think if anybody was honest, they'd kind of say the same thing. Like, you don't know what's gonna work. You don't know what's gonna go.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy. But I thought he was a little more honest than I was expecting. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to be so straightforward about. Even admitting that Megan 2 didn't do well. A lot of times people are like, well, if you look at the people that were supposed to come to see it, the 14 to 25-year-olds, he didn't do any of that.
No, he didn't.
I love that. I have to say, not that I don't wish ill on any movie, but I do love when people are honest about that stuff. Like, I think it makes it so much more interesting to read an interview when you know that someone's going to. And I think that nowadays people are a little bit more afraid to be honest in interviews because it becomes a story. Like, it becomes like, even I saw that, that particular piece get broken out, and the quote that gets put in the headline is always making it sound like really dire. But no, I feel like that kind of honesty used to be more commonplace in interviews,
Yeah.
People weren't so worried about the optics or about like getting taken out of context. So it's cool to see someone like Jason Blum acknowledging that. But you're right, Ronald. I had forgotten that like that a few failures of that Blumhouse model have happened where they spent a little more than they usually do and didn't get the returns on it, So it's not like there's a certain sweet spot they can hit that that they don't always hit. I guess, but isn't anything that works that well eventually not going to work? Like, eventually the confidence, Pixar, MCU, Blumhouse, whatever, the confidence of your model working is going to drive you to do these things that might not fit and might not be as successful. And the lesson shouldn't be don't try new things. But I think so often the corporate lesson is that's like, oh, we should not do that,
Interesting. I mean, he kind of at the end was kind of concluded that he may have to throw more money at some of the movies, like, because people want event-based movies. He's been seeing that people have come back after the pandemic for event-based movies. So maybe they should throw more money at the movies and make it feel bigger, which is interesting. I wasn't expecting him to say that at all. I thought it was just going to be like, we're going to stick to our guns on this. And
well, yeah, I mean, and also a big thing he acknowledged is just the state of horror. That like the model that they succeeded so much on was in an environment where there wasn't as many horror movies coming out that were either like that or just horror movies in general.
Yeah.
And he was like, basically, like, horror movies are not succeeding to the level that they used to or could because it was identified that horror is a genre that still makes money. So then they're releasing a lot of horror movies. Yeah. And it's segmenting everything. It's oversaturated. How do you differentiate? How do you get them to come for yours? Like, he talked about Sinners. It's like you have to eventize the movie because it can't just be that 3 million. Like, he was like, Get Out probably won't happen anytime soon.
Right.
Like, he made a comment like those things that cost a couple million that go on to make hundreds, like, that's not going to be very common anymore, if at all, because audience are still going to theaters, but they're going for the event type things. And there are the exceptions that catch on, but even those exceptions aren't the ones that cost a couple $1,000,000. They still cost 10, 20, 30 $1 million.
Interesting stuff, man.
Steve, a question I have just real quick about this while we're on this one. The cinema score for Megan 2.0 is B+.
Mm-hmm. That's very high.
Right, but supposedly anything below an A cinema score is bad. Is that just for horror or for a horror sequel? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, horror cinema scores are their own beast. Like,
okay, I wondered about that.
A B+ is like basically an A or an A- of like any other genre.
Because normally anything below an A, even an A- can be seen as bad for certain movies. For like an MCU movie, not to keep invoking that, but that for that type of blockbuster, anything below an A is considered bad because audiences should be leaving the theater believing that they were sold what they got.
Yeah, and also you try to hit that 4-quadrant piece, like with movies like that, where some of these movies don't go for that, but
But with horror, it's more of a gamble that the audience that loves horror may not get what they wanted and still be an audience that loves horror. And it's like, it doesn't hurt the brand of horror for a horror film to be unexpected or weird. You know what I mean? That core audience is probably going to keep coming to see them, even if a movie is like, oh, they sold me on this, but it turned out to be this. But it still is an interesting thing. I knew you would know that. So horror is just
again,
different.
To bring Sinners back up, that's the like paramount. Like Sinners got an A.
Yeah.
So an A from like a film that's a horror film, in essence, that's, it's huge. Like that's a massive, massive tell of what word of mouth will be, things like that. But
no,
yeah, even Elio got an A. F1 got an A. Like these movies are getting, they're again, and even in the context of Megan 2.0, it's like the audiences that are going to see the movies are getting good scores. But people just aren't going to see some of these films,
Right.
But yeah, so that was that.
Well, Wishbone says that's the show.
Wishbone says, hey, Wishbone. Moviesmovie.com is the website. You can go there to subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you prefer to listen to your podcasts. You can listen right there as well. YouTube.com/Moviesmovie podcast. If you want to do the really audio, visual, long form, short form. So many options there. And if you subscribe there, that'd be great. If you hit the little drop down and hit all, so you get notifications when everything comes out, and you can just kind of pick what you want to engage in. That would be amazing. We will be back next week with my required viewing pick of Deep Cover 2025, 1992. And yeah, we'll be talking about other stuff, obviously. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.
Well, fellers.
Yeah, you guys have a nice evening.
Yep. Have a safe 4th. Watch out for those twinkle. What did you call them?
Twinkle blasts.
Twinkle blasts.
I like that.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try my best.